Hey my friends, it's your girl Cassandra coming at you with another video. So I have promised y'all that I was going to do a video to recap the Talk About It Tuesdays. And so that's what this is. I meant to do this video on Wednesday night. That obviously did not happen. It is now Wednesday, and I know that tomorrow, my Thursday, is going to be completely booked solid. And so I was like, I'm on my way to an appointment tonight, and I thought that I'm just going to do this video on my way to my appointment. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cassandra Bellevue. I am the author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Last year, the Lord kind of threw me into doing these videos, just doing encouraging videos for folks who are trying to live their best Christian life, who are trying to go hard after Jesus, go hard after their destinies. And I just like to do encouraging videos for you guys to kind of, all I'm doing really is testifying, is just talking about the things that I have learned through my walk, the lessons that I have learned with the amazing people that God has put around me as we do life together. I really felt like the Lord told me that I needed to put more content out here. And it's not that I don't have content, because it's like I get a lot of the same questions from the people that I mentor and the people that I do ministry with, but I just don't put them into videos. So he's really challenged me to step up my video game in the next few months here. And so you're going to be seeing a whole lot more content. One of the things that I recently launched is for those of you who are on Clubhouse, and I just discovered that apparently Clubhouse is only for iPhone users. I just learned that like the other day. So I'm really learning all the new things about Clubhouse. I'm out there too. If you're out there on Clubhouse and you want to find me, I'm at Cassandra Bell, CASSANDRABELLE. And what we're going to be doing out there is every Tuesday, we're going to be doing at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to get on and we're going to pick a topic. I'm calling it Talk About It Tuesday. We're going to cover a wide range of different things. Another thing to stay tuned for, I've had several people ask me to do a book club for my book, Pressed But Not Crushed. And so I'm in the works. I'm working on all that stuff. So just stay tuned. If you're not following my Instagram page, find me out there, Cassandra Bellevue, or you can find updates and stuff on my website, which is bellevueproduction.co, if you want to stay in the know about everything going on. So Tuesday, okay, so I'm like really jazzed and really excited because, you know, most people talk about when they do their first room on Clubhouse, because first of all, the app itself is brand new. And then, you know, a lot of people are learning all kinds of stuff. And so most people, when they do their first room, they're not, like, nobody shows up. You just hear about all these folks on Clubhouse. Like, yeah, I did my first room and I was in there by myself. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just people are getting ramped up as you get more followers on Clubhouse. You know, people will join the different rooms that you do and such. And so I really wanted to kick off Talk About It Tuesdays with a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And the topic that I decided to kick us off with is identity. Identity. And when I was talking to the ladies that were on the call on Tuesday, I explained to them that, you know, growing up as a Christian, you know, I was taught obviously about the Word of God, how important that is to get the Word in you. I was eventually taught about like spiritual gifts, like knowing what your spiritual gifts are, and, you know, see how the Lord wired you and see what you could do in the kingdom, you know, that kind of stuff. Just like, you know, as a new believer, you're so many things are thrown at you to sharpen you, to disciple you. But it honestly wasn't for, oh my gosh, I want to say it was at least 10 years into my walk that I started learning about identity. And at first, when I learned about identity, it was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. To me, it was like this big pot, if you want to call it the Christianity soup, if you will. And, you know, you've got discipleship, and you've got reading the Word, and you've got Christian fellowship, and like all these different pieces that make up this whole following Christ thing. And so to me, it was like identity was like one more thing to throw in the Christianity stew, you know. It's like, yes, you know, learn about your identity as well. But the more I dug into identity, the more I realized, like, no. This is not another ingredient in the stew. This is foundational. Like, after believing in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, like, I feel like this is one of the most important things that you need to understand as you walk this thing out with God, is your identity. When we're talking about purpose and calling, and all this that I'm talking about is framed around the topic of purpose, calling, destiny. Like, that is one of my biggest passions. I feel like all my life, even though I didn't have the verbiage for it, and I didn't have the right headers and all that for what I was doing, I feel like all my life, if I look through all my relationships, like, that's been the steady theme, that's been the steady thread that's been woven through so many of my relationships and the different things that I have done, is I feel like the Lord is, I'm called to champion others. I'm called to help people birth their destinies. I've said this on one of my videos before. I was talking to a lady on Clubhouse, and I went and looked at her profile, and one of the things she said in her profile was that she called herself a spiritual midwife. And man, that just like set something off in my spirit. I was just like, oh my gosh, yes. I've called myself a battle coach, like all these different terms, because I've never really known what to call it. And when I saw her write that down, like spiritual midwife, like something just went off in my spirit. And I'm like, that's what it is. I feel like I'm always championing people and rooting them on to do whatever it is that God has called them to do, whatever it is. And I'm always that person that's like, have you tried this? Have you tried this? If they're discouraged, I'm on the analogy that I actually used in my book is like the boxer in the boxing ring. Like, he's in there and he's taking the hits and he's delivering some hits of his own, but at some point there's like a break, and he goes back into his corner, and he's got this crew of people that are bringing him back to life. They're squirting water in his mouth, and he's getting the massages, and his wounds are being tended to, and all these different things. And I feel like that's what I am. That's what I am, and that's where I got battle coach from. It's like, I'm that person that the Lord sends a lot of people my way who are just weary and they're tired and they want to give up or throw in the towel, and usually those are the people he sends my way for me to be like, no, you can do this, you got this, and I want to help equip people so they keep going. So again, coming back to identity, if you don't know your identity as it pertains to the purpose and the calling for your life and your destiny, you're going to have some major challenges. And I kind of broke this up into two pieces. I feel like identity is two pieces. Number one is you have to know who God is. Who is this God that you serve? If you've got my book, Pressed But Not Crushed, I dive deep into this in chapter 4, where we start talking about the belt of truth. And it is so important to know who God is. It is so important to know who your creator is. That is where you get your identity from. The analogy that the Lord gave me Tuesday morning, right before I did my Talk About It Tuesday talk, he was reminding me of the friends that I've known who have been adopted or who were raised in orphanages. Like, these people always have this long, and no, it doesn't matter how amazing their foster parents were or how amazing the parents who adopted them were. There's always this deep longing to know their biological parents. There is this yearning in their hearts to see a face that looks exactly like theirs, that has the same nose or the same lips or the same eyes or whatever it is. Like, that orphan wants to know where they come from. They want to connect with their people, their tribe, the person who was part of bringing them into the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's completely understandable, and so the Lord was just telling me, like, when we don't know where we come from, there's always a longing to know where we come from, our origins. And he was sharing with me, like, it's important that we know who he is. And like I said, I dive deep in this, really deep into this topic in chapter 4 of my book, where I go into like all the attributes of God. Like, God is love. You have to understand that he is love, and that he loves you, and that he's for you. You got to know that that he's all knowing, and so that's going to help you trust him. If he knows everything already, then you can trust the person who knows everything. Like, all these different attributes of God. He's holy. You know what I'm saying? He's without sin. He's not going to lead you astray and try to do something evil to you. All these different things about God, you have to come to an understanding of who he is so that you can trust him to lead you, right? Does that make sense? Another thing that, we have to understand is, God didn't just put us on this planet. It's not like this whole copy and pasting of people, and then there's this big crowd of us that's, sitting there before him, and then he's like, okay, you 20 in the back, you guys are going to be assigned to this. You 10 in the front here, come with me, we're going to go do this. He didn't just randomly select people to go do different tasks. Like, he didn't assign destinies and callings in that manner. He created you with the calling and the destiny, the DNA for that calling and that destiny. It's like that. It's like Psalm 139:14, I believe it is. It's that whole being fearfully and wonderfully made. You weren't just a random person, and then he was just like, well, she's not doing anything, how about we assign her to evangelism? That's not how it works. When he created you with a purpose and a calling, and he also infused into you the giftings and the talents and the passions to want to get that done. It all goes together. I was reminded a while ago of this analogy that I gave my kid one time when he was just kind of struggling with being different. And you know how it is, kids just go through these different things at school, and you kind of got to walk them through it. And the Holy Spirit gave me this analogy of utensils. Okay, you're sitting at a table, you've got your spoon, you've got your fork, you've got your knife, because when you're talking to kids, you got to break it down. That's why Jesus's parables were so simple, because you've got to break these things down in a way that anybody can come and understand. And so I remember talking to my son, and I was just like, everybody's different. It's like having the spoon and the fork and the knife, and I'm like, if you're talking about a fancy meal, usually the first course is going to be your soup, right? And so who's getting all the action in the beginning? It's the spoon. And the fork and the knife are just sitting there feeling left out, if you will. And the spoon is getting all the attention, and the spoon is helping to get that soup out of the bowl into the diner's mouth, And, I was telling my son, well, what happens if the fork gets super jealous and he just knocks the spoon out of the way, and he's like, I'm gonna do this myself, and so the fork is helping this person eating try to get the soup. Now the fork is going to be super frustrated because it's not able to cradle and lap up the soup because it's liquid and it's prongs, it's all going between the prongs. And the person who's trying to eat is also going to be very frustrated because none of the food is getting into his or her mouth. And I'm like, the other analogy that I gave him is like, well, what if the fork gets super frustrated and decides, you know what, I'm out of here, I'm not getting any attention, nobody loves me, and just leaves? Well, what happens when the next course comes and it's the salad? The spoon is not really going to be able to help out with that, unless he's scooping up a cherry tomato or something. And the knife by itself is not really going to be able to help out with that either. So if he abandoned ship, now the team is suffering because the fork is not in place to be ready to do what it was created to do. That's a very silly analogy, but I remember it just really I could see the light bulb go off for my son when we were kind of talking about it. And, it's like God doesn't make mistakes. A lot of times we look around us and we're like, oh, I wish I was more like this person. I mean, we see that in the world around us. People are just copying other people. And, people are just not being themselves. I have this thing that I say all the time is like, be unapologetically you. The world needs you. Be who you are and stop trying to just copy what other people are doing. Like, you bring something to the table that nobody else can. So we would be in a better place, as a human race, if people would step up and do what they were called to do and stop being, carbon copies of one another. God doesn't make any mistakes. You were created the way you were created for a reason, and you were created for a calling and a purpose, and that's been embedded in you, and that's why you have the desires you have, and that's why he's calling you to pursue it, and so that really was what the talk was about. Identity is so important. Identity, knowing who your father is and knowing who you are, how he created you to be, so that you can confidently go after the things that he's called you to go confidently after. And so I just want to, just encourage you with that. We had so much good discussion with the ladies that were on there, and I wish I could recap all of that for you guys, but I just can't, because I do want to keep this video short, and it's already like at almost 16 minutes. But it was some of the feedback that I got from the ladies that were on the call was that, like, it just really spoke to them about that whole comparison thing, and just like, stop looking at what other people are doing. One of the girls on the call was just saying, like, yeah, because, sometimes, I see these other people taking off and they're doing all these things, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so ready, God, let's do this. Let's do this. And as she was talking, the Lord gave me this analogy. And he gave me the analogy of two people who want to go into the hospitality industry, right? One of them decides to start a bed and breakfast, and the other one wants to create a large, resort, with hundreds of rooms. Okay, so the person who starts the bed and breakfast, they started and they're running their business for like 10 years. And this other person who has hospitality calling on their life is like jealous, and they're upset because they want to have all the customers, and they're like, I was made to serve these customers, like this is what I was made to do, and they're comparing. Okay, so let's take 10 years of a bed and breakfast, which has probably got four rooms in it maybe. So 10 years later, okay, this person number two finally builds this resort. It took that long to do it. Come up with the money, come up with the capital, have the architect build it, all the different things that go into building a resort like that, all the permits and all the manpower and all the different things. And I'm laughing because I'm like, if you want to compare how many people they both served, the person who just opened the resort, they are going to reach the same amount of numbers that this person who's been in business for 10 years within a matter of a few years, if you're wanting to compare numbers. So you really, it's not apples and apples. You know what I'm saying? It's not always, you can't compare yourself to what other people are doing, because you're called to do, so even if it's similar, you both have a calling of hospitality. I bet you, because due to your personalities, it's going to look different. It's going to be executed differently. It's going to have a different flavor. It's going to have a different feel to it. You know what I mean? You guys aren't doing the exact same thing. I have a friend that always says there's room for everyone at the table. You're not in competition with anybody, so your track might take a little bit longer than somebody else's, but it doesn't mean you're behind, right? And so anyway, I just want to encourage you guys with that. If you are struggling with your purpose and your calling, sometimes we feel like we're not qualified to do the very things that God is calling us to do. And still, it goes back to you trusting your maker. Do you think that God makes mistakes? Do you feel like he wouldn't equip you and position you to do the things that he's calling you to do? You've got to secure your foundation. You've got to secure your identity. Who is God? Okay? His character and what he's about, and how much he loves you, and how much he's for you, and how everything he is doing is to prosper you and not to harm you, right? You've got to get solidified in that truth. And that's why that's, in chapter 4, Belt of Truth. You've got to get solidified in the truth of who he is. And then you've kind of got to get solidified in who he says you are, so that when the enemy comes at you, because he is going to come at you and try to be like, well, who do you think you are? And oh my gosh, look at all these mistakes that you made. How dare you think that you would be able to do this, and that? Because God is for me, and I know who my God is, and I know who he said I am, and I know who he created me to be. And so therefore I'm going to fulfill my destiny, purpose, and calling. So anyway, guys, I hope that encourages you. Again, that's just a little snippet of the 2.5 hour conversation that we had on Clubhouse on Tuesday morning. I invite you to come out and join us. Find me on Clubhouse. Again, I'm at Cassandra Bell, CASSANDRABELLE. And what happens is, once you start following me, whenever I start a room or start a club or whatever it is, you'll get a notification if you have your notifications turned on, and you will know what's going on, and you'll be able to stay in the know. So I hope that encourages you guys. I look forward to engaging with you guys on Clubhouse, on Instagram, on YouTube, on my website, however it is you want to engage with me. And I just look forward to hearing all of y'all's story and all of y'all's feedback. So anyway, hope this encouraged you, and I will talk to you guys on the next video. Bye.